friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 30th of April and we are going to discuss three very important topics which are in news. First is RBI ordered banks to refund the excess interest which they have taken from its customers. Now what did the banks do? They, lend the customers, and in case any of the customers is repaying the loan, and in the month, let's suppose that loan is paid on 13th of that month, the banks were charging the interest rate for the entire 30 days or 31 days. Interest charging started from the day when the bank loan was approved, but approving it and disbursing it for usage of the customer, there was a lag of 3-4 days in that. So these kind of discrepancies RBI has taken into its notice and has ordered the banks to refund the amount to the customers. Truly, RBI is acting like a regulator of the banks. It is banks of the bank. Next is voter turnout. Now, in whatever phases of elections which have been conducted till now, it was seen that the voter turnout was less as compared to the 2019 general elections. Actually, there can be multiple reasons behind that. And one of the most disturbing reasons is voter apathy. Means the voter is indifferent. Voter does not consider voting as his or her right, and that is why it does not go to vote. The voter, clearly sees that particular day on which polling has to be done as a holiday. So these kind of instances have happened and turnout has been recorded in the bracket of 60 to 70% only, which was around 3% less than the previous general elections in those constituencies where voting has been done till now. So we need to be more aware, we need to be more active and exercise our right of voting if we want to make India a vibrant democracy. And the last is side effects of COVID vaccine. Now, British pharma giant AstraZeneca, which rolled out this vaccine Covishield, has, clearly accepted the fact that there are certain kind of side effects. And one of the major side effect is a disease which can be abbreviated as TTS, which simply, creates clots in the bloods and which also drops your platelet counts. When your platelet counts are low, it is a threat to your life. When blood clots are there, then there are more chances of getting heart attacks and all. So that has been accepted by the vaccine maker, and now let's see what the remedial measures will be undertaken by them. It is going to be a massive exercise if certain remedial measures at that scale will be taken. So now let us start with the first topic, that is RBI ordered banks to refund excess interest. Now the Reserve Bank of India has come across instances of lenders resorting to certain unfair practices by basically these banks. The lenders are the banks and the end consumer, that is means we the people, are the ultimate sufferers. And now the RBI has advised banks to refund such excess interest and other charges to the customers. RBI is having its supervisory teams which is dealing with the issue. Now RBI is the regulator of the banks. RBI regulates the activities, operations of the banks, and this is actually there should be one authority over these banks. This is what the mandate and the thought process behind making RBI was. Now the unfair practices. Now there are 4 such unfair practices which were, which came into the notice of RBI. First was banks were charging of interest from the date of sanction of loan or date of execution of loan agreement. Now date of sanction and date of execution of loan agreement is basically prior to that date on which the receivers who is taking that loan from the bank receives that amount in his or her bank account and starts utilizing it for whatever purpose that amount has been given. Even if there are 3-4 days lag, the customer is paying interest rate for 3-4 days also, for those 3-4 days also, which is uncalled for. Similarly, in the case of loans being disbursed by check, some of the loans were being disbursed by checks. Now, interest was charged on the date of check issue, whereas check was handed over to the customer several days later, and for clearing the check, it further takes 2 to 3 days. The interest for those time period is also charged by the banks. That is uncalled for. Third case, in case of disbursal or repayment of loans during the course of month. Let's suppose I've taken a loan and I have got some amount with me. I want to go and close my loan. I want to settle it. I go on the 13th of that month when to settle my loan, and I will be charged interest rate of the entire month. So that is something which is uncalled for. So charging interest rate for the entire month, that is again a negative practice, or I would say unethical practice by the banks. It was also observed that banks were collecting one or more installments in advance, but reckoning the full loan amount for charging interest. It was collecting that one EMI or some amount in advance, and actually the loan disbursed was the total amount minus that amount, but the charge interest rate was levied on the entire amount. That is also an unethical practice. So RBI has now taken these banks into, I would say, its consideration, and now have ordered to refund the amount to the customers. Now, the RBI Directive, in a circular on Monday, April 29th, the RBI directed the banks and NBFCs to review their practices regarding mode of disbursal of loans. Mode of disbursal means the check mode was there, so it has told them to come online to disburse the amount online, application of interest and other charges, and take corrective action, including system level changes as may be necessary to address the issues highlighted by RBI. This is in interest of fairness and transparency, as the RBI said, and also advise the banks to refund such excess interest and other charges to the customers. So customer interest is being upheld by RBI. Now, the RBI policy on interest rates. There are guidelines on fair practices code issued to various regulated entities. Regulated entities means the banks and all which are disbursing, which are regulated by RBI. Now, in this, RBI cannot regulate the rate of interest. It depends on banks to banks, the types of loans which you are taking. It depends on that, and that is why you will see certain variations in the rate of interest if you go to take loans from various banks. And just these guidelines advocate fairness and transparency in charging of interest by the lenders, while providing adequate freedom to the banks in regard to their loan pricing policy. Here, the banks have full freedom. Now, do banks inform borrowers in case of changes in interest rates? Does this also happen that once you've taken a loan at, let's suppose, 8% rate of interest, and the interest amount of that loan in future increase to 9%? Does this happen, or can that happen? Yes, it can happen if you've taken such a loan which does not have a fixed interest rate. If you have a floating interest rate loan, your interest rate can go up, can come down also. It depends on the market forces. Now, in that case, what is there? A major complaint of borrowers is that banks don't inform them properly about the change in interest rates. Now, let's suppose the interest rates have gone up. Banks have two options. They can either increase the amount of your EMI, or they can increase the tenure, or they can create a balance and do both. Now, at the time of sanction, banks are supposed to clearly communicate to the borrowers about the possible impact of change in benchmark interest rate, and which can lead to changes in EMI or tenor or both. Subsequently, any increase in the EMI, tenor or both on account of above should be communicated to the borrower immediately, but the borrower says that the banks don't inform us. Now, at the time of reset of interest rate, when the interest rates are reset, come back to the normal position, regulated entities should provide the option to the borrowers to switch over to a fixed rate. This is also said by RBI that, let's suppose anyone has taken a floating interest rate loan, and for a certain period the interest rate went up, so that person was bearing the losses, paying an additional I would say cost in EMI, or the tenor might have increased. And now when the rates have come back again, so at that time you give this option to the borrowers that whether you want to translate or transfer your loan from floating interest to fixed rate. This option should be given, and this is also the prerogative of the, I would say, banks, the regulated entities, that how many times they want to give this option, but this option at least should be given once to the customers. But unfortunately, the banks do not do that, and that is what RBI is concerned about and looking into. Next is the voter turnout. Actually, there was a I would say, saying by Thomas Jefferson. He was an American, the oldest democracy, that we do not have the government by the majority. We have the government by the majority who participate. You, me can be voters, can be above 18 years of sound mind, means we are eligible voters. We might be having our voter identity card as well, and we might be registered on the electoral rolls as well in our respective constituencies. But what if we don't go to vote? So that creates a problem. There, this quote goes, we do not have the government by the majority. We have the government by the majority who participate. Now, in this 2024 general election, the voter turnout at 66.7% has been dropped. Small dip in voter turnout, around 3% less than the 2019 election. However, there was this, small dip, but yes, a dip is there, which is concerning. This brings me to the question that why we should vote. Now, there are 4 reasons given over here. In democracies, voting is seen as a basic exercise that shows people's faith in political processes. We have that political process where the majority wins, will form the government, will, make the laws, implement them, rule out policies, schemes, implement them, keep our nation safe and secure from the other countries. All these are my aspirations as a citizen. The right to vote, after all, has also been secured by various disadvantaged groups: colonized people, women, racial and ethnic minorities. They have these, I would say, minority or disadvantaged section of the society. Through voting, through democracy, they can, be powerful. We have certain examples like, Mayawati, who belongs to a scheduled caste category, became the chief minister of the largest state population wise in India, that is UP, more than one time. Dalits did feel empowered at that time. So it can do these kind of wonders as well. Voting gives each person a say in deciding who will hold positions of power in their society and is a crucial part of exercising one's citizenship. And having the right to vote also makes one feel part of a larger community where their voice matters. So these 4 reasons are enough for you to go and vote. Just go and vote. Why people not voting? Actually, generic terms or in general sense, I would say that there are 2 major reasons that why people are not able to vote. One is structural barriers. Structural barriers like you are not registered as a voter. You are registered as a voter in a different constituency, wrong constituency. You go there, they're not allowed you to vote. Or your community, your group is not enfranchised, means the right to vote has not been given to you. These are some structural barriers. Voter apathy means the voter is indifferent, means it doesn't matter for the voter, is demotivated. The same thing will happen again. Why to vote? I will waste my time. This government is also like this. The previous one was also like this. The previous one was also like this. How does it matter? Things will remain like this. This kind of attitude is voter apathy. When you are demotivated, you are indifferent. Now, in modern times, the times which we stay in, this is not because of structural barriers. Structural barriers have largely been met. Like when we became independent, universal adult franchisee was which was the biggest structural barrier because a limited franchisee was there earlier. It was called, at that time, 21 and above were considered as adults. So all those people were given the right to vote. So in modern times, it is not because of structural barriers, it is because of voter apathy. People do not vote. Now, impact of not voting. Now let's again go back to that quote. We do not have a government by the majority. We have the government by the majority who participates. And sadly, as seen, 67% voter turnout, only 67% of the people participated in voting. The rest 33% did not participate. Now, the quote talks about one of the fundamental contradictions associated with democracy. It is supposed to be a rule of the people, by the people, for the people. But if most people are not part of this process, then it cannot be any of those things. Democracy in its essence will lose. Democracy is often criticized as rule of the majority over the minority. Actually, democracy is all the game of numbers, and rule of majority over minority, it is generally like this. Now, in case of voter apathy or barriers to voting, any of those two reasons due to which people are not voting, the majority is not ever registering its voice at all. This could be dangerous for overall health of existing political mechanisms, since only a few people are picking the popular representatives. And when few people are only picking the popular representatives, they will keep on picking again and again and again and again. That will be problematic. It could allow for small voting population which votes to be identified, manipulated, and polarized in favor of certain parties or candidates. So, in order to make this practice, or in order to make a democracy vibrant, increased participation needs to be there. That is inevitable. If only small section of society goes and vote, they will obviously keep on voting for the same candidate again and again, and there'll be no point of a democracy. Moreover, it implies that vast sections of people feel detached from the systems. The systems of lawmaking, law implementation, justice delivery. They feel detached. Arey, nothing is going to happen for us. Our lives will remain the same. We will remain poor. We cannot become rich by going and voting. These kind of things are. So voter apathy, this is basically. It is often seen in mature democracies which might hint at a sense of disillusionment. They are disillusioned with the process among the population over time, or a view that voting does not help change things. Many are also put off by the invisible levers. Invisible levers means that move politics, like behind the scenes lobbying, electoral funding by vested interests and all. So people feel one of the, I would say, invisible levers is, that perception that EVMs are tampered. So people will feel that what's the use of going if I press any, if I vote for any political party, जीतना उसी ने ही है, that political party will only win, which, the authorities will decide because EVMs are tampered. So that kind of invisible levers are also there. Young people tend to vote less as compared to elders, as they cannot identify themselves with a candidate. This was found not in India, but according to an analysis in The Economist a few years ago, which studied voters in UK and USA. This is also another reason that, impact of not voting. Now, phenomenon of negative voting. Is it helpful? Now, negative voting is when you are going to vote and you are not voting in any of the candidate's favor. Yes, that is none of the above nota option, which was introduced by the Supreme Court of India in 2013 in the Indian electoral processes for votings for the parliament, that is the general elections, and the state legislative assembly. Not allowing a person to cast vote negatively, which before 2013 the common man was not allowed, means this option of nota was not there, but now this option of nota is there. So now the Supreme Court said that not allowing a person to cast vote negatively defeats the very freedom of expression and the right ensured in Article 21. That is the right to liberty. Provision of negative voting would be in the interest of promoting democracy, as it would send clear signals to political parties and their candidates as to what the electorate think about them. If the nota percentage increases, although nothing is going to happen, still the candidate who has secured the maximum votes will win, even if nota is more than the that candidate's vote share. But it will send a clear signal to the political parties that what the electorate thinks about them, that none of you is worthy. This was the basic purpose of introducing nota. However, resolute outcomes of nota, like if are not there, like for example, if nota surpasses the vote share in nota surpasses any other vote share, then re-elections have to be there. Nothing like it, this is there. But it was just introduced to, make democracy more vibrant. Just allow people to go and express themselves by voting in favor of none of the above candidates. So this was there. And now the last piece of news, that is side effects of COVID vaccine. When I talk about the side effects of COVID vaccine, the British pharma giant AstraZeneca has admitted that the Covishield vaccine, which it developed, in rare instances cause side effect known as thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, TTS we call it. Now TTS is a rare condition in which blood clots form in unusual places in the body and platelet count in the blood drops. Blood clots are basically, lumps of blood and it can be formed in the lungs, it can be formed in the legs, and it can definitely lead to heart attacks as well. Platelet count is very much important, and that drops to below 1.5 lakh per ml. Now, classification of TTS. TTS is classified into two tiers by the CDC. First is rare blood clots like in the brain, gut, sometimes alongside more typical ones in the legs and lungs. Low platelet count below 1,50,000 per ml, and usually more severe and more common in the young people it is found. Tier 2, common blood clots in legs or lungs, and low platelet count below 1.5 lakh per ml. So this is basically the two tiers of TTS which has been classified by this American agency CDC. Now, TTS symptoms. What are the symptoms of TTS? Severe headache, stomach pain, swelling in the legs, breathing trouble, and problems with thinking or seizures. These are the symptoms of TTS. Now, with this, we've completed the topics, and now we will be here with the MCQs. The first is consider the following statements and mark the correct one. First is RBI regulates the operations of scheduled commercial banks. RBI can regulate the lending rates of the loans disbursed by the scheduled commercial banks to the individuals. Which of these statements are true? You have to answer it carefully. Second is, which of the following can be considered as a structural barrier for voting? Voters cannot identify themselves with the candidate. Voters are not motivated to vote. One section of the society is not franchised. None of the above. Carefully think the concept and then vote. And then answer. What does the concept of negative voting refer to? Where certain sections of the society are not allowed to vote, where people can go and vote in none of the candidates' favor, where people are forced to vote for a particular political party, and none of the above is the last option. Which of the following are impacts of thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, TTS? Low platelet count, blood clots in lungs, heart attacks. Now, this is, we have to apply common sense. You will get to the answer. Which of the following are symptoms of TTS? Severe headache, stomach pain, swelling in legs, and you have to answer among them. Now, with this, we've come to an end of today's session. I will be seeing you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Keep watching the videos, answering these questions. I will be coming up with the correct answers very shortly on all the videos posted from 24th till now. Don't worry. Namaste. Jai Hind.